What's going on, everybody? It's time for another Q&A video. So if you have any questions, put them in the comments section and let's get started. Hey Alex, what are your thoughts on full body twice a week with only 2 sets per muscle group, not 2 sets per exercise on the main muscle groups? No matter how you view it, both of those approaches are subpar and you already know it. My friend, the best evidence suggests that a higher volume approach is superior for muscle hypertrophy. What you're doing right now is literally half of what you're supposed to do. I would recommend at least 5 sets per muscle group done twice a week. In the case of frequency training, which what you're doing right now is quite standard. This is the baseline for most trainees. The whole point is to divide the stimulus such that you're increasing the training sessions. So on the bro split, you might hit your chest 1 time a week, but destroy it to the absolute maximum, 10, 20 sets in that session. Whereas with the full body, you're in the gym Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or every other day, or twice a week, but you're cutting that volume in half. So at the end of the week, you still get the same amount of sets, but they're better quality sets. And there's the additional muscle protein synthesis. That's the objective. Not just hit twice a week, but your volume is cut like crazy. In that case, your gains are not maximized in any type of way. So I would absolutely recommend that you at least double the volume that you're doing right now. And I think that most people would agree that 10, 15 sets per week is probably ideal. Some muscle groups can go as high as 20, and there is training experience to factor in as well. But I think that is a really good baseline for you right now. And if you're not willing to do that, maybe there's a scheduling restriction of some type and 2 sets is all you can really do. In that case, I would absolutely recommend going to the gym every other day just to make up for that lost volume. Hey Alex bro, I've got 2 questions, please help. 1, I'm a novice lifter and want to run your novice program. Can I build my first 20 pounds of muscle without properly following a diet, or just eating a lot would do the work? I'm a skinny fat 16-year-old dude. 2, plus my gym doesn't have a power rack for squats, so what should I do until I find another gym having one? 3, love from Pakistan. Well, much love from Canada, man. All right, for your first question, can you build a lot of muscle as a novice lifter not following a proper diet? Yes. So can you build muscle on a calorie deficit right now and just acquire gains in general. You don't need the best programming. You don't need the best diet. But that is not ideal and you know it. So how far can you go? I don't really know. It depends on your genetics, and also the age is a big factor here, not gonna lie. What I'm gonna say is try to milk the gains for as long as possible. It might be 3 months before you start plateauing. I don't know. But in the meantime, start learning more about nutrition and get things right, because your long-term health matters. And the earlier you start, the better off you're gonna be, not only health-wise, but gains-wise. What I'm curious about is why you would not want to follow a proper diet. Maybe it's because you only eat with your family and you don't prepare your own meals of any type. Either way, you can always get a part-time job and have some own meals on the side, or just include some extra things that can make a difference. Like even some basic protein shakes if you're not fulfilling your requirements. Maybe having a bunch of processed foods, or at least cut that out too. Like you have control. You're 16 years old. You know what's up. You're not totally dependent on your parents. I'm sure that you have some other opportunities available. So I'll pursue that. And recognize that you probably won't build your first 20 pounds of muscle with a subpar diet. It's not going to happen. You might get 5 pounds of muscle. You might go from a 95-pound bench press to 155. But after that, experience the greatest plateau of your entire life. What I can tell you is that, yes, the training is absolutely important, but nutrition is also. Actually, there's some guys who say it's 80% nutrition, 20% training, which I don't fully agree on, but that's another topic altogether. You have to optimize your diet. At least get your 0.8 grams of protein per pound of body weight and make sure you're hitting a minimum of your maintenance calories. I think that is the most important thing. Then the micronutrients, that's more so for your health and general well-being, but try to get some more fruits and vegetables. Try to get more plant-based options into your diet, like maybe a can of beans a day. That can do you well. Or 200 grams of berries a day, or 1 pack of frozen broccoli a day. Little things like that can make a difference. But at the end of the day, it comes down to progressive overload in the gym. Are you making progress? Are you fulfilling the right caloric needs? And is your protein 0.8 grams per pound of body weight, which is all you really need? If you're fulfilling those requirements, you can gain those first 20 pounds of muscle. You don't need the cleanest diet of all time. And I would even say that if you're dirty bulking right now, you're gonna gain a bunch of muscle, but also a lot of fat to go with it. So it depends how we're addressing this question, but I would say yes, you can absolutely build a lot of muscle right now. Just know that diet will hinder you at some point, and you need to fix that as soon as possible. Secondly, what can you do instead of the barbell back squat? You don't have a power rack, front squat. Clean it, get to work. Shouldn't have any problems doing that until maybe 185 or so. After that point, you're going to be limited by your clean strength, which is a serious limitation for a lot of novice lifters. So try to change gyms as soon as possible. Otherwise, you can do the Zercher position. That you can be limited by your conventional deadlift strength. And in that case, you might be in the high 200s right now. So you can milk those Zerchers for a little bit longer, and also consider adding in higher reps. So let's say You hit a 2-plate Zercher squat, and now you're starting to feel like it's hard to get in that starting position. Just do it for high reps, man. Hit a 5 sets of 10 with 225. You're going to get some nice legs from it. So little things like that. You can be creative. That's it. I hope my advice was helpful. Let me know what's up in a few months from now. I'd love to hear about your progress. I'm confused. He says 5x5 is optimal for building muscle, but all my life I've always known that 5 reps is more for strength and 8 to 15 reps is optimal for hypertrophy. I didn't say that. I don't know who said that, but 5x5 is a hybrid rep range and it works really good for bodybuilding and strength training. Time proven on both skills. It's a decent percentage of your 1 rep max and you're getting 25 total repetitions, which is comparable to your classic 3x10. So what makes it effective for building size is the fact that you're pretty much taking those sets close to failure for one, which is very important. And secondly, the volume is appropriate while using a higher percentage, which gives you that hybrid effect. Now, is it optimal or superior to a classic bodybuilding approach? I would say no. I would say that you will build more muscle doing a 5 sets of 10 with a lower percentage, going close to failure. It's more feasible. You don't have to rest as long. You'll be in and out of the gym quicker and you can do more exercise as well. The guy who does 5 sets of flat bench and dumbbell press is going to build a lot more muscle than a guy just doing 5x5 bench and leaving the gym. That's a fact. What you need to know is that there is no magical rep range and you can build muscle as low as 35 to 40% of your 1 rep max. What matters is that the total workload is appropriate. You're getting the right amount of sets per week and that those sets are taking close to failure. The more your reps in reserve is close to 0, the better off you're going to be. Reps of 5 is not exclusive to strength. Actually, 1 rep maxes and 3x3s, when you go below 5 reps, that is absolutely superior for raising your 1 rep max, which is becoming an absolute beast. So when we talk about rep ranges being optimal, it's more so the feasibility aspect, what makes more sense from a recovery standpoint, time saved, and just the results that you're getting for the work that you put in. How often should we change programs? When you need to. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Though a counter argument to that, which was coined by the one and only Greg Play, may he rest in peace, is that what could be better is as good as broken. Now that's powerful stuff, and personally, that's how I live my life. The way that I see it, if there's a better way, why not pursue that? So I don't know what system you're running right now, but I'll say this, if it's linear periodization, switch to conjugate and you'll get better results. So even though something might work effectively, may not be optimal, and that is the key distinction. So I always believe in doing the best of what you're capable of. It's like we went back to that first question. The guy was asking me 2 sets per muscle group. We know that 5 sets is better, so go for that instead. So even though you might be getting results right now, don't hold back just because you can. That not only instills laziness, but you're not maximizing gains. So that's my stance on it. But truth be told, if you're making gains, I mean, do what you want. If you're happy, you love the system, so be it. I can't take that away from you. But just know that over time, things are going to change and you're probably not going to run the same program forever. There's a system, there are principles that we can use. And for me, that happens to be concurrent periodization. I've been preaching this for years, and I'm probably not going to deviate away from this. I just believe it's the best way to train. So that remains. What changes is the exercise selection, the goals, the specificity aspect. But what I talk about, the exercise rotation, the management of volume and intensity, all these things, that stays. So you can say that the workouts are different, but the structure is still very much the same. So I would change programs when you know there's a better way, or if it simply stops working. You need to address something new. And in many cases, that's going to be figuring out what your weaknesses are and attacking them head on, not necessarily making a complete switcheroo. Hey Alex, I've hit a 1-plate overhead press for 5 sets of 3. My bench, however, is still at 155 pounds. Is there something wrong? If so, how to correct it? Thanks, man. Much appreciated. P.S. I use basic Novice program with linear progression. Okay. Yes, there's a serious problem with this. I don't know what form you're using, but I'm going to assume that the bench and overhead press are done with textbook style. In that case, you have lagging pecs. Straight up, there's no question about it. I don't know how you developed this imbalance. I don't know if you ran a system in the past that had you doing a lot of partials and maybe your triceps and delts got proportionally bigger. I have no clue. Maybe you ran an overhead press system right off the bat and then decided to start adding the bench. Either way, there is a serious imbalance here, and it's very rare that I hear a guy with a 1-plate overhead press benching 155. Like, how is that even possible? Blows my mind. So I would say you probably want to up your benching volume and maybe include an additional press. Maybe add in some dumbbell pressing or a weighted dip. Actually, the weighted dip might be better off for you right now because you need that deeper stretch in the pecs. There is something seriously lagging right here. You got to up that volume. You got to put in more work for the flat pressing and maybe back down temporarily on the overhead press. In fact, I want to know why you're doing 5 sets of 3 on a novice program. Maybe do 3 sets of 5 overhead press, 5x5 bench, coupled with an additional press doing a 3 to 5 sets of 10 setup. That'll give you much better gains, but recognize that the horizontal push is what's lagging. And your pecs, I bet if I looked at your physique, you would have much bigger delts proportionally. So that is what needs addressing, and maybe even consider adding in push-ups on a daily basis, nucleus overload style, grease in the groove style. Get in that extra frequency, see what happens over time. Hey Alex, do pull-ups have carryover to deadlifts? They absolutely do, and for years, I didn't think that was the case until I ran a pull-up specialization system for a good 2 years. What happened when I started lifting in the gym again? I pulled 700 pounds in the trap bar deadlift high handle at a much lighter body weight, 165. It was a joke. Look how fast it was if I give you a side-by-side comparison. Of course, I also add in other stuff for my lower body, but the point remains, my upper back strength increased, my forearm strength increased. Actually, I was able to do 655 without the straps. So everything improved from doing pull-ups. It's one of my favorite movements of all time. You really can't go wrong with it. You will get carryover. You are going to get thicker from it. Don't let anyone tell you that this is a bad exercise. They're absolutely crazy if they believe in that. Sure, rows might target your back a little bit more, and you could say it's probably a bit safer on the shoulders, and maybe the rowing volume should be higher than your pull-up volume. Regardless, pull-ups are absolutely phenomenal, and they will raise your deadlift on max. I don't care what the variation is. Conventional, sumo, behind the back, everything. You find me a guy who could do 4-plate weighted pull-ups for reps, coupled with the right lower body system, he's going to be strong every single time. Reason why you see a lot of calisthenics athletes with deadlifts that are subpar is because they don't train their legs. But if you already have the upper body strength, and then you put some serious focus into your good mornings, your belt squats, just your volume in general, things are going to explode right off the bat. This is exactly what you saw with me, and heck, even if I'm lazy with low body training, I still have a great deadlift. So the pull-ups are definitely to credit. And might I say that Kayla Willem said the exact same thing? Says a lot, doesn't it? Hey Alex, my gym doesn't have a machine for reverse hypers. What are some good alternatives to reap the same benefits? Well, you can't really replace the reverse hyper. Sure, you can say that there are other exercises that build up those muscle groups, but the movement is not about the muscles themselves. It's the restoration and strength building aspect. It's the rejuvenation that you get from it. I mean, you're rotating that sacrum, you're tractioning out the spine. It's a phenomenal lift. Best replacement I can think of is a DIY setup. I actually made a tutorial on this a while back. Get a power rack, put some bands underneath you or some ankle weights, get to work. If not, you can always lean over some machines in your gym, try experimenting that way, or do a different exercise that has similar benefits, but really not the same thing. So I would say if you want that active recovery, I would do kettlebell swings in addition to band good mornings. That combination will make your lower back feel phenomenal, and it's going to build your glutes and hamstrings to a pretty large extent. So I would do that on the off days, 2 to 4 times a week. Should see a lot of benefits this way. Hey Alex, is rack pull better than trap bar deadlift for traps? I feel more traps involved with the neutral grip. Thanks from Italy. Well, I would say the trap gains are rather comparable because it's all about the weighted stretch. And if we talk about the grip width, maybe the trap bar will allow you to be a bit more upright and keep your arms more behind your body instead of just rounding forward. And the fact that the handles are a bit wider might be a little bit better for the traps. Actually, there is some research showing that you don't want to have a super close grip. You want to be slightly outside shoulder width. So that could be one of the reasons. On top of that, you want to think about the weight used. You're probably using the trap bar deadlift with the higher handles. So I would make the argument that if you mash that load with a below the knee rack pull, that you won't see a significant difference size-wise. Only thing is, the trap bar might allow you to put a little bit more volume in since you won't be as limited by the posterior chain. So if you were to give me an option, I would say a trap bar block pull is likely the best for traps because you get a solid way to stretch in, the neutral grip, which is excellent for injury prevention, and also a little bit wider, and you're not limited by your posterior chain strength as much. So both will yield an extremely similar effect on the trap specifically. I just think that it depends what the weight gap is. Like if you're doing a trap bar deadlift with 50 pounds more than your rack pull, obviously that's superior. So you gotta look at that factor. What's the best way to use the trap bar for leg gains? By using it twice a week. You can do a classic 5 sets of 10 twice a week, and that'll give you a lot of gains. Only thing is, you gotta consider stimulus to fatigue. And that might not be the best movement for that since you can lift pretty heavy loads. So in that case, I would do the deficit trap bar deadlift. This way the loads might be reduced by 50 to 100 pounds, and you're going to increase the range of motion and get really good leg gains as a result. So that's what I would do to get more out of less weight. Make sure that your recovery is not really a problem. Otherwise, if the recovery is too much of an issue, have one day where you work up to 1 rep max or a peak set of 3 to 5 reps and then back down the volume a little bit. So back off sets, and then just have one day where it's 3 sets of 10 and that's it. And then you can make up for the volume by doing it with the assistance work. So you might up your lunge volume. Great video. Thanks, man. Would love to hear your opinion on weak point training for calisthenic skills. You really sold me on the idea for weight training, but I'm curious about bodyweight skills as well. For example, hitting good mornings to strengthen lower back for planche has really made me feel a lot more stable. Thanks. That's a really interesting question. And I would say that you probably already know the answer because you've experienced it yourself. Weak point training is absolutely universal. Doesn't matter what the sport is, doesn't matter what the goal is. If there's a lagging muscle group that is holding back your performance on exercise that requires it, obviously strengthening it through other means will be extremely beneficial, especially when we consider the fact that size and strength are highly correlated. This is why there are people who specialize in weighted calisthenics that can go in and do advanced skills right off the bat because the muscles themselves are already strong. So one guy I can tell you to check out is Dan Jong. He has a really good channel that focuses on calisthenics, and what he recommends is doing certain weight training movements to give you carryover. One of them is doing hammer curls with the squeezing, so isometrics, and you slow down the tempo. This way you get more carryover to gymnastic rings. Another one is doing the front raise with a plate, coupled with scapula protraction. This way you're mimicking the planche effect. So there are exercises that are actually specific, even though they're not bodyweight movements. And then also I'd check out Fitness FAQs. He has a ton of content on that. So those are probably the 2 best channels I can think of right now in terms of weight training exercises that would give you carryover. But really, there's a lot you can do. And yes, you're right. Lagging muscle groups affect you in more ways than you could possibly realize. Hey, Alex, I want to improve my 1 mile/kilometer time. Could I use concurrent periodization with cardio workouts? Yes. Concurrent periodization is a universal training style. It applies to any sport, any goal for the most part. I know I'm repeating myself from what I said before, but it's the same thing. It's just a way of dividing your training. So in this case, you might have some days where you're going at a faster speed, other days where you're doing longer times, or you change the path. Or maybe you're doing inclines on some days, flat on others. It's really about changing the variables. This way you minimize overuse, but we're constantly getting better. Because a lot of runners will just do the same thing on a frequent basis, and then they start getting hurt, or they experience what is known as the speed barrier. You can overcome this by having multiple variables at play. Really makes a difference. Hey Alex, what do you think about pause chain presses? I actually prefer this because when you do the chain pressing really quickly, they tend to move around a lot, which I know you're gonna do that on speed work, but for maxing out or doing simple volume work, I'd recommend pausing. For one, pausing is generally better. Like I made a full video talking about this subject, but I prefer it. It's better for the pecs, it's safer, you're more tight. And when you put on the chains, it really forces you to explode out of the bottom. It's a hard thing to describe. All I'm gonna say is give it a shot and you won't regret it. This is what I do 9 out of 10 times. Could I incorporate your novice program routine at home with only a 35-pound dumbbell and a 30-pound dumbbell, even though it wouldn't be as effective? Thank you. Yes. Just know that at some point you're going to plateau and you will require exercises that allow you to get more out of less weight while increasing the volume substantially. You might hit the point where you're doing 5 sets of 20 on a flat dumbbell bench with even a slow tempo and pauses. You're making the best of what you got. Can't do anything about that. And maybe I would even say that running a classic novice system is inappropriate for what you have. I would actually do more exercises to get higher volume. This way, those light weights aren't going to be as much of a hindering factor because 35 pounds is going to feel light pretty quickly, except for some little movements like curls, you know? And obviously your side delt work and all that. So some exercises you're gonna be fine, but the big compounds, that what you're trying to get really big on, it's gonna be a limitation. So might I even say that you should emphasize calisthenics instead? Treat that as your starter and then the novice linear progression for higher volume with those lighter dumbbells. I think you'd be better off. Is the Jefferson deadlift as equally good in loading the posterior chain as conventional, or am I missing out on a lot? Also training kickboxing, I need strong glutes and hamstrings. Thanks for your answer, man. I really appreciate it. Figured weak glutes and quads to be the problem. I now wanted to skip deadlifts to bring up these areas first, doing lots of RDLs, reverse lunges, and band leg curls. Okay, I love what you're doing with the accessory work. Continue, right? But to go back to your first question, no, the conventional deadlift is a lot better for the posterior chain. Jefferson, you're more upright. The angle changes to the extent that you won't hit your lower back as hard. It's more of a quad dominant exercise while hitting the hamstrings hard as well. As weird as that sounds, but that's what you're gonna feel when you do the exercise. It builds tremendous core strength, unilateral performance, amazing for fighters. But if your main objective is to build the posterior chain, a conventional deadlift might be a better choice. But then again, I would make the argument that you're not gonna be doing lots of volume on this movement to begin with. it has a very poor stimulus to fatigue ratio, as does the Jefferson deadlift. So if you're only doing low reps to begin with, then it doesn't really matter. And if we talk about the effects gained muscular-wise, it's insignificant regardless. So your bread and butter is going to be through the accessory lifts. And in that case, I would recommend doing good mornings, which is more of a hip hinge than a conventional deadlift. You will gain more muscle doing a 3 to 5 sets of 10 setup with good mornings than a 1 rep max conventional pull, or even a 5x5 conventional deadlift. Yes, it's getting more out of less weight. It's the leverages involved. So you're doing RDLs right now. That's great. But you know what? I might replace that for the good morning because of the stimulus to fatigue ratio. You can add in an extra 2 sets in. You won't feel as beat down. You're going to get the same muscle building results with a fraction of the load. That is what I would do. Not heavy squats and dead. So this concern that, oh, conventional is better for posterior chain. Yes, that is correct. No one's going to deny that. But that doesn't matter when we look at what we're doing beyond the deadlift, which is arguably more important from the hypertrophy standpoint. So if you're maxing on different Jefferson deadlift variations and then you do lots of supplemental work while being specific to your sport and actually doing your drills, you're going to be a tank every single time. So I wouldn't stress. Okay, for this next question, this guy's doing 5x5 weighted chin-ups, and he wants to know if he should add in 5x10 inverted rows in addition to doing the accessories. He's doing that 3 times a week. He wants to know if it's too much volume. To that, I would say absolutely not. The 5x5 is a perfect approach. A nice little hybrid range, as I discussed in one of the previous questions. And the 5 sets 10 inverted row is great. Amazing stimulus to fatigue ratio. It's not going to bring you to the ground recovery-wise. And it's great volume. That's what you're getting. You're getting 10 sets per workout. But with the 5x5, you're getting 25 total reps. It's not totally the same thing as that 5x10. You're actually getting more out of those inverted rows, I would argue. So nothing wrong about that. Only thing is, it's 3 times a week, which can be a lot considering what you're doing with the accessories and the total volume itself. So you have to pay attention to how you feel. Maybe a 3x10 inverted row would be a slightly better approach. I think with that, no problems whatsoever. In regards to adding band shrugs, which is what you asked me, sure, why not? If you want to get bigger traps and you do that at the end of your workout, you'll be able to get more out of less weight. Those bands are going to feel pretty heavy. And obviously isolating your traps is superior to not doing that at all. So I think you're on the right track here. It sounds like you're maximizing your program. You got 3 times a week frequency. This is a really good program. I think you're going to get jacked out of your damn mind. No question about it. So let me know what's up. Don't be afraid to add in those rows, okay? The rows is one of the smartest things you could possibly do for your long-term gains, not only in terms of strengthening the upper back, but keeping you injury-free and making sure that everything is balanced. You don't want to do exclusively pull-ups. I made that mistake a while back. So what you're saying right here, the volume, it's a lot of volume, but it's quality volume. And you're getting more or less weight through the exercise that you mentioned. So keep doing this, all right? Only thing I'll say is maybe you don't want to do 5x5 pull-ups 3 times a week. Can't say I would train like that. I would do 1 day 5x5, and then the 2 other days would be classic bodybuilding set rep parameters, just for the recovery aspect and better management of volume and intensity. But hey, you do what you want, all right? All right, so now I bring you to the final question of this Q&A. What's your opinion on gummy bears after the gym that gym bros say work? I see a lot of lifters on TikTok say they're good for fast carbs, but I don't believe it. TikTok. I've heard that's a trash platform for fitness, but hey, I've never looked into it myself, so I'm not going to comment on that. All I will say is that gummy bears are pure fucking garbage, and you should never buy that if you actually value your health. It's highly processed, full of sugar, bad for your stomach. Why the fuck would anyone buy that for bodybuilding or just making gains in general? I mean, if you subscribe to the whole post-workout ideology that, yeah, you got to have in 15, 30 minutes right after training, otherwise you're going to lose all your muscle gains, for one, that's nonsense. It's already been debunked. And if it is true, marginally, you're getting maybe 1% better gains. So it's not going to make a huge difference. But also, like, getting in some carbs after your workout. Why not just eat a regular meal and that's it? Or have a classic protein shake with a little bit of fruit on the side. Why would you eat gummy bears? Those should only be given out during Halloween. Or, if you want to be a real asshole, give out some fucking apples and that's it. Gummy bears? Really, bro? I don't know what these people are saying on TikTok, but god damn, that is terrible fucking advice. Don't buy that. Don't have it in your house. Heck, don't have processed foods in general in your house. Don't have chips. Don't have any of these things that you know are destructive. And if you already bought them because you listen to these bros, throw them out. Do yourself a favor. Get some fruit. Have some berries after a workout. Okay? And with that said, I'm done answering these questions. If you have more, put them in the comment section. I will see you in the next Q&A video.